It's true. And so, yes, both of those things were irritating, but I will say that the door wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be, because it looked like it was going to flip over if he was on it. Like, it was okay. Like, I can suspend my disbelief. There were other parts of it that I was like, okay, this is a separate thing that I find ridiculous, and I can talk about that, whenever I get the chance, but... Yeah. You want to do it now? Yeah. So here's the big thing that was for me, and y'all heard me complain about this, was the iceberg. And here's the sad part about it, is that they set it up to be really believable, because they spent a lot of time talking to the captain. He was like, oh, if you go faster than normal, we'll arrive in New York on time, or ahead of schedule, and you'll make headlines. Mm-hmm. And the guy's like, I'll go faster than normal. Okay, that makes sense. We're setting it up. And then there's even a good line where the guy's like, this water, the white cats tonight, that could really hide an iceberg. They'd be hard to spot. And he's like, I'm just going to go to bed, not do anything about it. He literally just goes,
Where's his tea?
Yeah, and so it was... The whole time I'm like, ooh, they're setting this up really good. And then they totally screw it up at the end when the two guys who are watching, they look away for 1 second. First of all, just to set up, the ocean is totally calm. Mm-hmm. And they make a comment about that. It's like glass in all directions. And they look down to watch Rose and our boy DiCaprio kiss for a second. And then they look back up, and this massive iceberg that is like above water, the size of the Titanic, is just right in front of them. And it's like, what?
You think it looks fake?
No, it's not that it looks fake. It's that if you're on a ship and you have clear conditions, which they did, and it's like glass in all directions, you are going to see an iceberg of that size.
You think you should have seen them like looking through something?
No, they should have been like in real life, and the iceberg should have been mostly below the water.
Yeah.
And they couldn't have seen it. And
okay. You said, so you're thinking there's too much above the water.
Well, it was so huge, and it like just spawned right in front of them. They would have seen that from like 4 nautical miles away, and been like, oh, there's a massive iceberg way out there. Let's turn. There is no way on. It's like, have you ever seen that scene that Dad always makes fun of, when the guy's on the lawnmower and he's about to hit something and he's like, no! And like, that's what that's like. Like, the ship is going at like 30 knots.
Yeah, but
tops.
I mean, they did do the historical where they tried to, I love the scenes down below with all the guys putting the pole in to be able to see how massive, and
that was
the
cool.
film of when they did the gears,
tried to reverse it.
Yeah.
Now it is kind of interesting because trying to turn and reverse at the same time isn't a great idea.
No, it actually made them turn, and some people argue if they would have hit it head on, it could have not, because it hit the sides and scraped. Those compartments filled, and you know how the engineer.
Now, I'm not a genius nautical captain or anything, but if I'd have been up on the bridge while the iceberg was coming towards them, I would have said either A, we need to turn, or B, we need to reverse. You don't do both at the same time, because those two things, you're not going to turn effectively. Like, they don't work. So either you try to back up, or you maintain speed and turn, because if you do that, you're going to have more inertia in the turn. You're going to turn quicker. Mm-hmm. It's like if you're in a car, if you are barely touching the gas pedal and you're turning, you're going to turn super slow. But if you got more gas in the pedal, you're going to turn faster. And so you got to pick one or the other. That's probably I don't know if that happened in real life, but my big thing that doesn't make any sense to me is the iceberg is huge, and they would have seen it from so far. It was so it was like, what on earth are you doing? That was like complete suspensive disbelief. Like, that was just terrible.
Yeah, so my other negative would be that I think you mentioned this, there are some kind of cheesy moments that are kind of...
it wasn't as bad as
not cringy, but they're a little bit kind of...
Screaming each other's names all the time.
Yeah. And then there's just some scenes where there's some wacky dialogue.
The hand on the steamy door.
Yeah. There's a lot of moments
iconic, man.
It is. There's a lot of moments in the movie that are kind of just kind of very much Hollywood stuff. Yeah. That's it kind of pulls you out of the movie a little bit. There's a handful of moments. That's one. Then there's the one where, there's just some scenes where they're talking, and it doesn't feel like what they'd be talking about in 1912.
Yeah.
These are scenes with Rose and Jack.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just some scenes like that. And so there's a few moments in the movie that kind of pull you out.
There's that bizarre scene where she's half drunk, and she's like, "You think you're a big strong man?" And she just stands up on her toes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's what?
That was actually kind of entertaining.
It was funny, but I found it in a guide, and I'm like, okay. Like, what was that? Anyway, I thought that was a little bit strange. She's like, it's been years since I did that. Anyhow.
You have any other? You
gotta have a criticism. Come on.
Yeah, just a nitpick.
Someone's haircut or something.
I mean, I see y'all's points, the ones that y'all have made. I mean, I don't know that I love the whole throwing the diamond back in.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah.
I just don't know where did that
come from?
Yeah, like why?
There was no thematic precedent.
Yeah, and I mean, other than people discussing, I guess it caused people to have something to talk about, But I mean, I see like the rebel. They reflected back to her getting up on the because
that was good.
That's
now
good.
Thematically, that was good.
Yeah, because that's the beginning and the end.
Yes,
like, of her.
And I think that the plot twist of her having the gem, revealing that she had it because it was in the jacket and everything, that was a good enough plot twist to stand on its own feet. Yeah. You know?
There were some other cool moments of parallelism, like when they get to the top of the ship.
I thought about that.
That's also
a great parallel.
He saved her the first time.
And he says the same line.
She says that she's
I'm not going to let you go. You know?
That's true.
Mm-hmm. He says the same line, I'm not going to let you go. And it's the...
That works well.
It does work well. And that had a lot of thought behind it. That was good.
So I don't have it. Those are my two negatives.
Just my negatives turned into positives.
I know, right?
So my two negatives, just to sum up, were the pacing's a little bit off at the beginning and end, and then I also think that there are some cheesy moments that kind of pull you out of the movie. Yeah, I know you have one more.
I got one more.
It's about I know what it's about.
Yeah, DiCaprio's too young, just to summarize, or looks too young rather, because he's older than her, which is so weird. DiCaprio looks too young. The iceberg is just total nonsense. Like the way that they should have done it the way it was in real life. And finally, I had an issue with the framing device, and it was sad because a little tweaking could have made this a lot better. So the way that they set up her telling the story to them is they have one of the scientists give her a presentation. And it's a 3D model, and he's like, so this is how we think the Titanic sank. We think it skimmed the side of the iceberg, it filled the compartments, it made the bottom sink, and so the back came out of the water, but it was too heavy, so it broke, and then it drugged the rest of it underwater. And that's how we think it happened. She says this line, she says, that was a very good, thank you for that technical demonstration, Mr. So-and-so, but...
That's really funny.
And then she says something along the lines of, but you haven't experienced it. And so then the main scientist guy is like, why don't you just tell us what happened? And now, John took a different thing.
I take that more as like, you finish that.
Yeah, of course. But to me, that's very heavily implying like, hey, I got something to tell you that you missed there. Like, hey, you might have all this technical stuff down, but you haven't experienced it.
But the experience was her story.
That's how I took it. I took that as just being like, you weren't, you can have all these technical displays, but you weren't there. I was actually there.
Exactly.
I didn't take that as being like, it was a whole different way the ship sunk.
Well, that's the way I interpret the dialogue, the way it was set up, but especially with her tone of voice when she's like, she is almost like trying to respectfully decline what he was saying, and it's like, hey, and it sounds to me that she's trying to correct an aspect of what happened, and then she launches into the story.
To say there's a human element.
Yeah, I think that's how I took it.
And especially her story was quite fascinating. That it's so funny when they cut back to that when she's telling about the love story, like she says, the line.
It's the most erotic moment of my life.
Yeah, and they are like.
That's a good scene.
It's like they're all circled around her. Like,
I love the guys. By the way,
more.
I didn't say this, but I love the guys the actors who played like the scientists. They were really funny.
The guy with the beard.
Bill Paxton's obviously really good, but the guy with the beard is really funny. Yeah. He's like cusses all the time in the movie, and he'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry," like because he's talking to the old lady who likes to get Bob and be like, "Oh, sorry."
So, given my interpretation of that line, I found it really disappointing that it was the exact same in the Titanic.
I guess that's more of a matter of
interpretation. If I'd have been a scientist in the room and she'd have gotten to the end of the story and the sinking would have been the same, I'd have been like, bro, like, what? Anyhow, I have a couple other, not criticisms, but like notes.
Okay.
I had a couple notes. Something I noticed, main bad guy was carrying a Camber 1911. In the year 1912, which is technically accurate, but it's pretty funny. He must have gone and got that thing right off the freaking assembly line.
They were the wealthiest.
Yeah, they're really ornate. But here's the other thing: the Camber 1911 was a pistol that was manufactured for the U.S. Army specifically, and it would see use originally in World War I, and then also it's one of the only firearms carried over and was saw service in World War II in 1911 is still used today. It's a really good firearm. But it's really funny that a British aristocrat would have had a 1911 that year. I mean, it's a really cool gun.
That scene that you mentioned the gun, that's one scene I felt that was kind of, the whole scene wasn't cheesy, but it's like that slow-mo part where he pulls the gun and it goes slow-mo. I didn't think that was necessary. That was kind of over the top.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole scene is pretty cool. He's like chasing him around, shooting at him, but the first part of it's like a slow-mo shot of him grabbing the gun. It just felt kind of over the top.
Also, the Camera 1911 has a ammo capacity, if I'm not mistaken, there might be gun nerds out there who correct me, ammo capacity of 7 rounds. Which is a really accurate, and it's a really hard-hitting round, it's a 45, but that's the trade-off, is that it's only got 7 shots, and I'm pretty sure he shot them more than 7 times. I didn't count, so I can't say that for sure, but he was like, bang, 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 bang. So, it's a low capacity. Yeah. So that's a note. I wouldn't say that's a criticism. Another note that I like to put is with when they were freezing and Jack was in the water, and so before he dies of hypothermia, he tells her to never let go and never to give up. And this is something I'm going to talk about more because I think that this is a really important and something that sets Titanic apart from other romance movies in a really profound way. But I thought it was a little strange how quickly she did let him go right after that. Like, literally.
Yeah, that's always been a criticism.
Because she's like, Jack, are you awake? Oh, I guess he's dead. And he just goes into the water, and like she doesn't like. It doesn't seem like she checks very much to see if he's dead. Yeah. And it's not that I'm asking for James Cameron to have her just like this massive meltdown, right on the thing, because I know she's dying, and it's a high tense moment, and she probably knew he was going to die and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But after all of the really intense romance stuff, it was really strange to see her just push him into the water and watch him go away, and like she like shook him like 3 times. It's like, I guess he's dead. So that was another note that I had.
I don't know anyone else, so y'all want to move on to themes?
But yeah, let's hit the themes. I've got some thoughts on
Usually we each just give like our overarching theme.
And then we'll do history.
You can go first.
Me or her?
Yeah, her.
The theme?
Yeah.
We'll have to do a little bit of a short history section because I got.
Yeah, I got you. We are. Anyhow, yeah, we got to wrap this up. So, themes. What do you think the major themes of this movie were?
I mean, there is obviously a romance, you know, but like I said at the beginning, mixed with the historical, it was just fun to watch something that really happened. Because I love things that are true stories, but then it added that whole, romance. So, I mean,
yeah.
But like theme wise, how it was framed, and had the older and the younger version of, and just. An older person reflecting back on their life, and we see old people. You're starting to see, like as you get older, you look back and you see that, just because someone looks 101 doesn't mean that they weren't beautiful women one day and they had.
I like that. That
was cool.
It
made you think, like about that.
I like that too. It wasn't like a lot of these romance movies will just glorify youth. And like almost worship it, but this kind of had like the other side of the coin for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. John, got anything?
So I'm actually going to echo the thoughts of the director. Okay. So the director, I saw an interview, or I think actually might have been, it was an interview, or maybe it was like his Oscar acceptance speech or something. He actually said what he believes to be the theme of the movie, and he said, and I agree with him, he said it's about like the idea that like life is precious, and that like,
I see that.
That's what he says. It's like that. He says the theme is that life is precious. The only thing we own is today, and that you need to you never know what's gonna happen. Like,
that's what DiCaprio's character teaches. Right?
Yeah. I know. Yeah, that's the theme of. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that is true. And I think also it's like in the whole idea of like it's echoed in the whole idea of like how they're like. They Rose and Jack have this whole idea they're going to go off and do their own thing, and then the Titanic sinks. Mm-hmm. And it's like their plans are crushed because the only thing they own is today. Titanic sinks, and all those plans are ruined. And so I think that's the theme that I see. And obviously the director, that's the theme that he wrote into the movie that he says. Mm-hmm. So I just thought that would be interesting to mention that.
Yep. So I got a cool thought on the theme. I think that Titanic includes a theme along with the romance that is missing from a lot of romance movies, and I really appreciate it because it's a really wholesome and good thing to be teaching folks, through a movie, and it's the idea of overcoming your trauma.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of other movies in this way would have had Rose be devastated, have her never recover, have her never remarry, always clinging to the memory of her lost love, Jack.
But it shows all the pictures of all the things she did.
Instead, what Rose does is she lives her life like Jack was there, and she comes to peace with his death. And I know I was just 1 second ago I was ratting on her coming to peace, but that was just because it was like 3 seconds later. But I'm talking about over time. She remarries, she has a family, she lives life, and she overcomes her trauma. And she learns how to do that from Jack. And I think that that's such an important thing, because a lot of movies would try to teach folks through the film that, man, the boy, the girl, that's all you need. You know, that's the thing that makes life worth it, is your love, your true love. And that's the only thing that's going to bolster you through life. But Titanic takes a different approach to it. It's like, hey, this love is great and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, but sometimes bad things happen and you lose it, and you have to come to terms with it, and life is still worth living. And I think that that's a beautiful message to teach people.
Yeah, they do a lot of good. Several times in the movie, they show choices. You know, like and the consequences of a choice. And like when she's being lowered in that boat, and she realized, she's like, "No, I'm not going to leave." And
that's my favorite part with the music. I think that's where the music is the best. Is in that scene, the music's playing, and then she jumps out.
It's so cute how they're trying to talk and kiss at the same time. Like, So I know you're short in time, so you want to jump into history?
Oh yeah. Well, I wanted to say there was one positive that I forgot to mention. I feel like
go for it.
I know we kind of hinted at it, but the movie is like really. I feel like we have to mention this. It's like an exciting movie.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the second half.
Yeah, like the second half of this movie is very like action packed, and it's really like it's almost, you get to kind of like see all these different parts of the Titanic in the first half, but especially in the second half, because they're like running around in like all the different dorm rooms, and like
they even end up at the bottom.
It's a really exciting like chase scene. The bodyguards trying to get them, and the movie is just the second half of this movie is one of the greatest like disaster sequences ever filmed.
It's hilarious to me how they he's stuck in the bottom, and how they end up getting out together and then going back and getting back out, and like
it feels like they keep on going back down. They'll get out and then they wind up back down in the hole.
It's so funny.
I know, but it seems realistic. Like she has to go back and get him, and then they end up back down there. They have to get the key. There's just a lot of really like tense moments that make you as the audience feel really like worried. I know. Yeah,
when they can't get in that gate.
The movie ramps up the tension like a lot, and it really makes the audience invest and makes them feel like, man, is he gonna die here? Like, what's gonna happen?
Kept going back.
The axe scene was actually one of the more charming, where she has to cut him with the axe, and she closes her eyes. But the most hilarious part about that one to me is when she misses, and then he's like, enough practice.
And also the other positive that none of us mentioned is the cinema. We kept on talking about it in the movie. The cinematography is like, it won best cinematography for a reason. There are so many cool shots of like the Titanic, especially when it's sinking, and it's like it's like the camera's moving up on the Titanic, and you just see everybody's like rats trying to get to the top.
I love that.
And there's also some just cool wide shots of the Titanic when they're firing off the fireworks. It just shows. It's like from a real wide shot, you don't really hear anything. It's all silent, but you can just see the firework going off, and it obviously implies that there's no ships anywhere near them. There were just some really good cinematography in this movie.
I thought it was really funny, that scene when they're all convening together, all the captains and stuff, and it's when they realize that it's going to sink, you know? Because they're like, it's filled in the compartments here, here, and here. And the guy goes, if it's in 4 compartments, it can survive. But if it's in 5, the ship sinks. And they're like, I thought it was unsinkable. It's like, no, if 5 compartments fill up, it sinks. It's like, bro, that's like way different than unsinkable. Why did you call it unsinkable? If
I think that was just kind of like the moniker they wanted to give to it. You know?
Yeah, I mean, but it was funny that sinkers are like, it's unsinkable. It's like, no, if 5 compartments fill up, it'll sink. It's like,
also
okay.
But back to themes. I have one more theme before, and we might need to go in right. We might need to kind of maybe
bump the history section.
Yeah, I don't really have. I mean,
I was going to let you mention, because I know there's a lot of stuff that you've studied about this movie. Maybe there's a couple facts you'd like to share.
But one more theme real quick. I just wanted to mention this. I think the theme of this movie is like heroism and like putting yourself before others, and also not doing that, because you have people. A lot of the men are really like brave, and like obviously have all the women and children go on before them, and then there's like these guys that just are really like cool guys that like sacrifice for other people. Like the guy who built the ship is like going around the ship making sure that everybody's getting out. And then obviously you have the cowards who do try to get on like Cal and that other dude with the mustache. And then and it just makes you hate those guys even more. And then but I really just love that theme. One of my favorite scenes that echoes that theme is like is the scene where the guy accidentally shoots. Mm-hmm. He kind of gets all he kind of loses it for a second and shoots two guys, and then he like realizes like what he's done, and he knows that the right thing to do would be like kill himself there. I mean, it probably isn't the right thing to do, but like that scene was really powerful, and like how that guy was like struggling with like what he had just done.
For being
I really
a girly
like that
film,
scene.
like or kind of perceived, it perceived as a girly film. It deals with a lot of really like tough stuff. Like you wouldn't see stuff like suicide and shooting people and
it deals with. There's a lot of deep thematic elements to it.
Yeah, like it's not shallow at all.
But anyway, so. All right, so do you want to mention like just a few? I really probably have time for like maybe a couple.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything on the history. I mean, from what I looked up, the movie's pretty accurate on a lot of the
like we went over at the beginning how they did a good job on the set and the costumes and everything.
But obviously the story, we have to mention the story. The romance is fictional.
Right.
I mean, unless there was.
It could have happened.
It could have happened.
It could have happened.
There wasn't Jade Austen on the.
It could have happened. Anyway, but
well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Let's Talk Movies. Thank you, Mama, for coming on to talk about a movie that you really enjoy.
We gotta give our ratings.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
So
I
so you rate it 1 to 10, and then kind of maybe sum up your thoughts.
Okay.
So you can go first.
Okay. I mean, like I said, I'm not a huge movie person actually, but this is probably my top movie.
Wow.
I mean, like I love it.
So now we've done your dad's favorite movie, and now
my
mom's favorite movie.
I know, y'all are so sweet.
Yeah, it's funny because they're similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, a 10 out of 10.
10.
Really? Yeah.
I mean,
on this channel we have a rule, not like 9.99999. There's no perfect movie.
Yeah,
that's your rule, John.
That's my rule.
That's her. She can rate it.
I'm just joking with you.
I'm
just joking.
I'm trying to think if there was one above it.
Yeah.
So you
I'm
know,
just joking with you. That's my rule.
So I do see what there are a couple little things that I agreed with y'all on with the negative, so I could go with a 9.9 and be
Yeah.
Anyway.
But it was
So John,
I'll go next. You go to your message to the director.
Sure.
All right, so I would give this movie an 8 out of 10. Maybe even an 8.5, somewhere in between there, because I really think that the movie is really good. The visual effects are like some of the best of all time, and I really think the acting is good. It's really good across the board. There are a few things that pull it back for me. There's some cheesy moments, and there's also some problems with the pacing at the beginning and end, I think. But the positives definitely outweigh the negatives, so I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10.
good.
Nice. So you like it better than 300?
What did I give 300?
8.
An 8? All right, I have to give it an 8, because I would say I think I like these movies. Okay. 8 out of 10.
So, John, you're going to be really happy to hear that I think you were right. This movie is better than Pearl Harbor.
Yeah,
definitely better than Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor was like trying to give the Titanic treatment to where it was trying to like
same idea with the history,
and it did not work as much. Anyway, all right, your message to James Cameron, the greatest Canadian filmmaker of all time.
The greatest Canadian filmmaker of all time.
He is Canadian.
James Cameron, you make a lot of money, so I'm sure you're happy with yourself about that. Mr. Cameron, good job with Titanic. I really enjoy these cool historical biops, and you definitely hit it out of the park. So what else can I say than that?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about how I measured this movie up against 300, and I was thinking like, what movie would I rather watch? And I thought 300, but then I thought why? And I thought because I don't have to sit there for 3 hours. It's really because 300 is done in like an hour, and then you can just be done. And continue with your life. But as far as movie quality.
Titanic, probably.
I gave 308.5, and so to be fair, I've got to at least give Titanic an 8.5.
There you go.
Yeah. It's funny, it's getting harder to keep all of our ratings straight.
Yeah, because you don't want to rate something
above something else. Yeah. You're I'm sure I've accidentally rated worse movies higher than good movies, So anyway, thank you for joining us for another episode of Let's Talk Movies. John's got to go to Chick-fil-A now.
To work.
Yeah, I mean.
See ya.